I say this to all of my mentees that I speak with, anybody that I talk to, is that, just like a company or organization, they have certain values that they stand by. They have a purpose and a mission that they stand by. Make sure you have a clear understanding of what your mission is, what you want your purpose to be for yourself, what's important to you. And that's going to lay the roadmap down of what boards you think you want to go after. Because it's one thing to hop on a board just for experience, right? Oh, let me just get my feet wet. But it carries a lot more weight when you can join a board that speaks volumes to you, whether it's your work environment that you work in, or whether it's just something on a nonprofit lens that you're passionate about. Like this might be your purpose project, Ensure first that you have an understanding of what matters most to you.
Hey, let's face it, this is a very tough job market. Layoffs, low pay, stressful work. Not a lot of job opportunities for those applying, and even for those who are employed, the risk of just having just one single income can cause stress and anxiety. So we asked the question, what other options do we have to grow our careers while growing our income? Welcome to We Got Options podcast. I interview guests who share how to leverage your current corporate skills to create multiple income streams, adding 5 to 6 figure opportunities on the side while using skills that you already have. If you're facing layoffs, stuck under a glass ceiling, you don't see growth opportunities in your current position, the career ladder isn't working for you, or you just want to look at how to have multiple streams of income, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Alonzo Simmons. I'm very excited to share this episode with you. Let's dive in. All right, so welcome to another episode. I'm excited to have Devon here. So Devon is somewhat of a unicorn. Wait, when you hear his story, you're gonna hear why. His story is a little bit different. Today, we're gonna just talk about how you're taking your career skills, how you can look at other options. We're gonna focus on his board advisory today. He has a few things going on, but the board is what we're gonna focus on. I get a lot of questions all the time about what is a board? How do you get on a board? If you are asked to be a part of a board, what exactly does that mean? How would you juggle a board in a full-time job and that sort of thing? So we'll get into some of that and more in this episode. So you definitely want to pay attention to this one. So Devin, I'm gonna let you go ahead and introduce yourself. If you could just let everyone know maybe a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your education background, some of your corporate background, and then we'll get right into it.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure to be on this podcast. Excited to join it. So a little bit about me. Let's see. I have about 20, close to 20 years of experience on the corporate side. Of that, 15 plus years relates to governance, risk, and compliance. I started in that space probably in the mid early 2000s. I quickly, realized that most organizations treated it risk like a burden, right? Just paperwork, check the box, and then that's it. I wanted to show it could be a tool for leadership and culture. That's how. I'm not for sure if anyone might follow me, but if you don't, I'm known as the Risk Rebel, and that name was simply earned and not given, right? Because that's how it came into fruition by turning risks into something that fuels growth instead of holding it back. Along the way, I learned that the real key to unlocking certain things was transferable skills. That's the same skills that made me successful in corporate, whether that be strategic thinking, communication, building frameworks, motivating teams at a very skilled level that allowed me to become a board advisors for the 3 current board advisory roles that I sit in across several different industries. And also allowed me to have the privilege of being a speaker and now an author. That's why I tell people, don't let your title limit yourself. Your skills are portable and they travel further than you think. So today I sit at iHeartMedia as the head of operational risk management, which I sit on the enterprise security side, where our job is simply to keep the company safe. And that is a big driver for me. Beyond that, as I mentioned before, the board advisory roles that I do sit in span across the fintech, blockchain, emerging tech, as well as financial crimes industry, where I can just advocate and continue to push the needle forward in those particular spaces. I am located here in the Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas area, where we do have a lot of action as it relates to the financial space and just the fintech space. It's a lot of good synergy here. So happy to be here. And that's a little bit about me.
Wow, man, that's a lot to unpack. That's a lot to unpack there. So I want to highlight just a couple of things you said, just to bring attention for everyone. So he mentioned he's on 3 advisory boards. So we'll figure out what that means. Sounds like it spans across different industries. So we'll talk about that as well. Sounds like it's created some other opportunities for you speaking and that sort of thing. Um, so we're both in the Dallas Fort Worth. So are you originally from the Dallas Fort Worth area?
So I'm originally I'm a Midwest born and raised boy from Chicago, Illinois. I basically lived there till my early teens, like 13. Then my family relocated to Florida, South Florida area to be particular. And then I landed here in the Texas area maybe about 9 years ago now. So kind of not new to the area. Texas is so big, still unfamiliar to some, still unfamiliar to a lot of areas around here. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man, Texas is huge, huge. Okay,
yeah.
good, good, good. So we're from Florida, and he came here to Dallas. So risk, from my recruiting experience, risk is not a lot of people go to college for risk. Not a lot of people are exposed to like that's even a career option. Sometimes I run into folks that may have had a legal background, and now I'm interviewing them for a risk position. So we'll get into your board, but I just wanted you to speak on, for someone who may be thinking about going into risk, or maybe they're starting a career in risk. What does that kind of look like for you? What kind of job titles are you looking at in that field?
Absolutely. So for those who don't know what risk management is or what it might look like, it's always tied to the three layers, which is governance, risk, and compliance. Some know it as GRC. And GRC is basically the foundation that most companies will sit on, right? The reason why they sit on it is because ultimately it's going to keep the company safe, keep them compliant, also ensure that they have a strong governance to support whatever infrastructure they're trying to stand up, whether that be in the space of business, whether it be in the space of healthcare, whether that be in the space of finance. That is truly what a governance, risk, and compliance looks like. And primarily on the risk side, if you want to really think about risk in a simple way, basically, what I do and what risk advocates for is that it essentially keeps the company safe from any potential regulatory fines, ensuring that proper controls are in place for any function or any process that impacts your company from a functionality perspective all the way to a process perspective. So basically constantly doing that post check to say, hey, are we doing this correctly? Do we have this implemented? If not, how do we get there? And walking them along that journey as a risk professional to ensure those things get met, whether that is on the regulatory side, whether that is on the business side, the financial side, because at the end of the day, my job is important from the lens of we're going to keep you safe financially, operationally, uh, from a regulatory side and also from a business side. That is what keeps those lights on at the company at the end of the day, right? You wonder
Right.
why you're able to come
Mhm.
up and show up for a job and clock in. Well, it's because because we have established a level of policy, a level of framework that allows that company to thrive. So I would say that is the sweet aspect of it, the sweet and short aspect of what risk is. And then just from a role perspective, there's many different avenues. You can go on the technical side or you can go on the non-technical side. The technical side might be in the space of IT, infrastructure side, where you're looking at, controls and regulations from a technical side. Or the non-technical side is focused on the business side. Hey, do we have this policy in place? How are we interacting with our customers? Are we following a regulation that might affect the protection of the customer? So there's many different business ventures that you could pursue in the lens of risk management, whether that's a risk manager, whether that is, let's say, even I would say a security analyst. Every functionality has a little bit of seasoning as it relates to risk management in it,
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it. Got it. Got it. No, that's good. I just try to highlight different career paths because I know, for some people listening, they're thinking and considering a new career path.
absolutely.
Right now, with kind of the way the economy is changing, with AI coming on board and kind of changing a lot of roles,
Man,
what they look like.
absolutely.
We're really encouraging people to kind of tie themselves to industries or tie themselves to roles where there needs to be a human element of review because it sounds like what you're saying is serious business, and the chances of a company just leaving that up to AI without someone actually taking a look at it and actually being involved. I'm sure AI plays a role in what you're doing, but it seems like it still needs to be a human element involved.
100%. And I'm glad you mentioned that because, we are in the active space of AI where people are moving to it like it's the new gold rush, right? And, people get scared. They worry about, well, is my job at risk or could it be removed? One thing I will say that could give you peace of mind working in my particular space, just to give you a level of comfort is that yeah, I'm all for, new technology, especially as it relates to AI, but there always has to be a human element, especially for what I do, because you have to think about it, right? AI essentially is a system, is an infrastructure, and once you actually implement that AI system, well, who's going to ensure that AI system works? That's where the human aspect comes in. Well, it's up to me to ensure that, hey, all those mechanics within that, say, AI operating system are working as intended. Data hallucination is a real thing, right? When we're talking about AI. So it's up to me to ensure that it's still, spitting out good data, whether that is supporting you to cross-reference something, to, check the box on something. There is a level of humanality or just emotional intelligence that needs to be there because if it's
Yeah.
not there, it won't thrive like it needs to.
Yeah. And if things go wrong, a company can't say, "Oh, the AI put us in this position." They're still liable,
Absolutely.
so that won't
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day,
that won't
they
work.
just want somebody they can blame, right? So,
Yeah.
that is where the importance of a human behind a machine is still necessary.
Yeah, yeah, good, good. Okay, so let's get into some of the good stuff here that I'm sure everyone wants to know about. So let's get into some of the board conversations. So you're on 3 boards. So before we kind of get into that and what that means exactly, big picture. What is a board? What exactly do you if someone asks you to be on a board, do you apply to be on a board? Is it referral? Like kind of what that looks like. And then let's just start there.
Yeah, so great question. So as I mentioned, I sit on 3 boards right now. I can go over a couple of what those boards are, and then I'll get into what that looks like. So one board I sit on is called the Blockchain Lex Group. Basically, that company is focused on um, it's a premier legal fintech firm, if you will, that focuses on innovation, that specialize in offerings and services as it relates to data protection, whether it relates to AI, uh, cryptocurrency, Web3. Their mission is to empower clients by navigating them through complex legal landscapes. And we have like this boot camp format, right, if you will, that we offer, and we actually support 80,000 students that span across Africa and a lot of the Caribbean islands, where we put them through a very accelerated boot camp type of program where they get a certification in that space. And then we help advocate for them for any ideas that they might have, where we have particular partners that will invest in ideathons and help support them to bring it to life. And then another board I sit on is the Coalition Against Financial Crimes. That is very self-explanatory, basically advocating for the safety of particular fraudsters and people in the space that are fighting against financial crimes and keeping law enforcement and regulators in the mix and making sure that from just a global anti-financial crime perspective stays a part of the ecosystem. Those are a couple, but to go really right into your question, basically every company or organization, they'll either have a mission, they'll have a purpose, they'll have the values, and those are basically what drives the company, right? So when you think about a board, whether that's the board advisors or board of directors, basically it's up to them to ensure that they are setting the company up for success on a strategic lens, on a ethical lens, because um, they're going to always go back to what the company's mission is, what their values are, ensuring that any strategic goals or any initiatives or just from a policy perspective, that they're ensuring that they're following what they said they're going to do at the end of the day, right? Holding them accountable, right? So from a structure perspective, think about, you have your executive leaders, and then below your executive leaders, you have the managers, and then you have just, the business professionals. Well, above those executive leaders, they have someone to report to. Typically, those executive leaders will have to report to the board, right? The board is that sounding board for them to ensure that the accountability is there, to ensure that business goals are being met, to ensure that KPIs or KRIs are being thought about when the company is continuing to push the needle forward. So what's an important piece is that you bring to the table is that you gotta have experience, or you gotta have a level of expertise or skill set as it relates to whatever board you're supporting,
Got
because
it.
at the end of the day, you want to add value to the bigger picture. The board, and that's the best way I can describe it. The board is going to think about the bigger picture for the organization, right? They're going to look at things from a financial side. They're going to ensure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, the books are okay, whether that's bookkeeping, because that's what they support too. When you think about a board, they cover certain important entities, whether that be from a financial lens, whether that be the fundraising. They really are the guidance book for the organization to follow. But let's say an associate wouldn't know that because they might not interact with them on that level. But I can guarantee you those executive leaders in your area that you might support, or in your company that you're working for, they're actively in communication with those board members at a executive level, or in my case, I'm the board advisor. So taking it a step back further, you have your board directors and you have your board advisors, right? That entity works where the board advisors are ensuring the board of directors, which are actually the ones that are actually executing the work
Mm,
from
I see.
a board perspective. The board advisors are holding the position from an advisory perspective. We're just making sure that, hey, that looks right. Yes, I think that's the direction that you need to be going. And it doesn't happen overnight. I would say that you get to a board advisory role. I started off as a board director, a role early in my career, where you have to roll up your sleeves. You're part of the initiative. You're part of the missions to help further the needle. And because my tenure in certain spaces of risk management and let's say financial services, it gave me the privilege to be a board advisor, where now I'm using my level of expertise that I've gathered through my 20 years to say, hey, yeah, that looks right, but that does not look right. And here's the reason why. This is where you strategically want to make sure that you're keeping the ecosystem for this company alive. These are the initiatives, these are the conversations that I recommend you want to have with the executive leaders
Oh, wow.
to ensure that that tone is set. So I would say from a process and functionality, that's how everything is set up, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Wow, wow. Okay, okay. So a couple things there. If I'm someone listening and I'm not like familiar with the board, so it sounds like there's two levels. We have the board of directors who more they probably interact with the employees of that the leadership of that organization directly. Constant communication back and forth, and you're holding
Mhm.
them accountable. The advisory, you're going to interact with the board and help them if they, give them some insight, give them some advice that they can now take back to the company. But you guys work together, and the ultimate goal is to help that company land on their
Absolutely.
mission, hit their KPIs, and have somewhat of a level of expertise that they may not have internal, or just to complement what they have with their internal employees, to give them an advantage to grow in the marketplace or grow their mission, or even as a nonprofit, grow their nonprofit mission as well.
100%. And I'm glad you mentioned nonprofit because it does vary as far as um, a for-profit company versus nonprofit. I've had both roles, nonprofit space, um, in the 501(c) space. There are certain things that you have to adhere to structurally when we're talking about that might be totally different from, let's say, a real Fortune 500 organization. So it definitely varies, but the premise stays the same,
So,
the purpose
mhm.
stays the same. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Hey, man, I just want to. I'm impressed. Salute to you, man, because
Well,
just being in the space of, of recruitment, I recruit on all levels, and I've had to recruit for board members before. I've worked at companies where we're or had clients where we're looking at board members, and the one thing that comes up uh, is diversity within the board. I mean, there's
man,
diversity,
yes,
and then there's also diversity of roles, the diversity of thought. There's all types of diversity,
yes,
but when it comes to diversity, um, there's not a lot of representation normally within boards, and that's usually, even if we look at managers, vice presidents, and all that, that's not as diverse. But when we get to boards specifically,
yes,
it's even less diverse. So with that being said,
absolutely.
definitely a salute to you, and also want to encourage everyone out there, and we'll talk about that here shortly of how you even pursued that or how you even got down that path. But we would all benefit to see more people of color to look at boards and be a part of boards, and just in that ecosystem. Like, what kind of triggered you, or what kind of helped you to think of yourself as, maybe I could be on a board? Because that still sounds like overwhelming for
Yeah,
someone, right? Like, if
absolutely.
someone came
Yeah.
to someone like, "Hey, I like what you're doing," even if someone's a phenomenal, whatever they're doing, marketing, sales, whatever, and someone's like, "Hey, would you think
Hmm.
about being a board?" I could see some people just being overwhelmed, like, "Hey, I got a full-time job, maybe I got what does it mean to be on a board for me as an individual?" So tell us a little bit more, like, how you even decided to go toward the board and what it meant for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So me, I'm a professional and just a man that if I support something, it has to have a mission, it has to have a purpose, right? There has to be substance to it, right? And sometimes at the level of you being, let's say, a associate or a senior associate or even like a manager, you're really focused on a job function and you're focused on let's say job duties as it were. Well, that's great, but I'm all about continuing to push myself forward where I can contribute more in a real way, and that's kind of what, got me interested and piqued my interest in a board advisory role, or let's say a board of director role, because again, having something with purpose and understanding what that looks like, you won't necessarily see it at the level of the operational side. You'll be more closely connected to it at a board of director side because you're setting the tone essentially for the entire company to ensure that they are following, right? And I'm a firm believer in diversity of thought, because that is an important thing that you mentioned earlier. Sometimes you see these board of directors or these board advisors, and you don't want to say it, but they're very disconnected
Right.
from from humanity, from what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And I made it my goal to shake things up. Going back to that, name people call me risk rebel, right? I'm all about doing things the compliant way. I'm all about ensuring that we avoid risk. But at the end of the day, just because we are doing it this way doesn't mean we have to continue to do it this way, right? And I'm all about bringing a different lens because a big factor too, especially in these boards, there is a generational disconnect, right? A huge generational disconnect, and that's where too diversity of thought comes into play. It's important that you have leadership in these particular roles, um, and in multiple generational areas that they support, whether it be your baby boomers, whether it be your next gen. It's very important because they're going to contribute and they're going to advocate for something that you might not be aware of, you might not be visible for, and that you might just not be connected to from their lens. So it's important for me when I do bring my full self to these board meetings or these board advisors, I ensure that I'm speaking for not only my generation, but I am also acting as the bridge between the generation that came before me and the generation that's going to come after me. And to ensure that they don't get fallen by the wayside. So that is what really I think got me interested, is just saying that, hey, this is a real purpose I can support. I know I can add a different, fresh set of eyes that they are probably not considering. And I know I can reinvent the wheel, but still ensure that we are fulfilling our purpose as board advisors or board directors. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, wow. Okay. So if someone is listening to this and they're like, okay, I want to be a part of a board. All right. How what would you advise? Like the first maybe 2 or 3 steps they could take to put themselves out there, because it's not so, you don't just go to LinkedIn and just, or maybe sometimes you can, but most of the time you just
hmm
don't go to LinkedIn or Indeed and there's like, hey, we need 5 board
yep,
members. Put in your application, we'll call you. So how would you advise them to start taking, or even preparing themselves to even be
yeah.
ready for something like that?
So preparation is key. Um, I live by the 5 Ps. Uh, Now I can't remember it. And let me see, it's poor performance prevents. I can't remember it now. If I remember later, I'll bring it back. But basically, the premise behind is that stay ready so you don't have to get ready, essentially, right? And that's what you want to do here. What I recommend people to do, and this I say this to all of my mentees that I speak with, anybody that I talk to, is that just like a company or organization, they have certain values that they stand by. They have a purpose and a mission that they stand by. Make sure you have a clear understanding of what your mission is, what you want your purpose to be for yourself, what's important to you, and that's gonna lay the roadmap down of what boards you think you want to go after. Because it's one thing to hop on a board just for experience, right? Oh, let me just get my feet wet. But it carries a lot more weight when you can join a board that speaks volumes to you, whether it's your work environment that you work in, or whether it's just something on a nonprofit lens that you're passionate about. Like this might be your purpose project, you know? Ensure first that you have an understanding of what matters most to you and what are your values. And that's going to lay the groundwork for what direction you're going. Because the next step that you're going to do after that is that find your sweet spot, find your niche, right? I know that I have great experience in this particular space. So now let me just take a moment, and there are useful tools out there, right? You can either use LinkedIn. I'm a big advocate on LinkedIn jobs because they put all the board seats there as well. Most companies do. Some don't, but just take a gander at what's available out there. Or if not that, there's other tools like Boardsy. Boardsy is a platform that has certain experts that will look at your background. It's kind of like a recruiter, right? Essentially, they'll look at your background and they'll assign you to any available board seat that they think might add value to you, right? There is a fee that's buying that particular one. I've never used it because um, I just like to use what's available to me, and I pursue it really aggressive, right? You got to show them that you're interested. Not only that, I would say after you figure out what your mission and purpose is, create a board profile that's specifically for that. It could be separate from your profile, maybe that you have on LinkedIn, or maybe how you have your resume structured. Cater it what you're trying to advocate for. And that's why I say it's important to understand what your mission and purpose is, because that's going to help you develop your board bio or your board profile, right? And it can be something not too long, but what you really want to capture is you want to capture the essence of what you're good at and what you can support and what means most to you and what you can advocate for. And then that's going to help, really structure again the legwork that you need to do when you're pursuing these board seats or these board advisor role. And the ones that, let's say, might not be available on LinkedIn, what I do too, and what I recommend people to do is go on the actual company's website. If it's a nonprofit seat, you can look either on the website they have available, and also for profit actually. Go to their about section. Usually 9 times out of 10, when you go through this company about section, they'll also have a section for their board of directors. You'll be able to get also an idea of who their board of directors look like, what type of experience do they have, what do you think you can contribute that they don't contribute based upon their bios, right?
That was
That's
good.
how you're
Yeah.
going to also be able to determine, hey, I think they pretty much good here. Maybe not for me right now, right? Well, I see this gap here where I can really add some value. So let me go ahead and push the needle forward because too, usually around that same area where you're looking at their board of directors, they'll usually have a section, hey, here you can apply if you're open for a board role. So um just be ready. So when you do come across available opportunity, whether that's on their company website, whether on LinkedIn, you already have a clear understanding of, hey, this is where I can add value, this is where I can't. This matters most to me. This supports my mission, and just hit the ground running. So, having that clear understanding of what you want your mission and purpose to be, I think is the most important starting point.
Wow, that's good. That's good. So this is a proactive endeavor, for the
Now,
most part, right?
yeah, so I would say this. Yes and no. It's proactive when you are first getting on. Like when you're really trying to get your feet wet, trying to get the exposure. Yes, absolutely. Um, for me, because I've held several board seats in the past, you will get now again, this is why it's important to have that board profile or board bio, right? Because 9 times out of 10, if you've already served on board members, especially if your reputation is good where you brought a lot of value to that company, now it's a matter of a word of mouth. Usually what I've seen too, once you get that entry level experience behind and underneath your belt, you might have a company or someone that's recruiting for a board seat. That, hey, came across your profile, looks like you might be a good fit. Are you open to taking another board seat? Or and what's great about board roles is that, and again, it depends on obviously if it's for profit or nonprofit, but that's essentially could be additional revenue that you could be making for yourself, depending upon if it's a for-profit or nonprofit. It all depends, right? Some companies offer certain incentives. I will say too, though, as a caution for people trying to get into that particular space as well, there might be a certain amount of a contribution that they may expect you to contribute just to show one that you're invested in a mission and purpose, but some don't, right? I recommend you going for the ones that don't, or let's say they might have a certain workaround where they say, hey, you can either um, join and pay, let's say, this fee, or let's say if you can, depending upon like if it's a nonprofit, if you recruit, let's say, 5 members or 4 corporate members,
Mm.
that can help leverage it. And I recommend doing it that way because, a lot of us, we don't have, let's say, $1,000, $5,000 sitting around, right?
Just
You just don't
just
have
to
that,
yeah.
right? Yeah, just to say that, right?
Uh-huh.
So get creative, and that's where it comes to selling yourself too, right? Hey, I don't have that available right now, but what I do have is this. What I can bring to the table is that. Once you work with these founders and CEOs, because that's who you're going to be in the rooms talking with on the board level, right? They want to get an idea of what you're about, what your experience is. They want to get a feel of your personality. If you have that level of determination and dedication, sometimes that might be all they're looking for.
Wow, that's good. That's good. I mean, you've given us a lot of information today. For someone especially that have just heard of board but they haven't pursued it. I think this gives us all a lot to take a look at. A couple things I'll highlight for folks is if you're interested in it, pursue it. You maybe look into your network, look at companies or associations that you're already passionate about or you're already a part of. If there's hobbies or things that you're a part of, and they may have companies that you could be a part of those boards. If it's something unique about your background that ties you to a particular mission that you could be that you could tie yourself to, that will probably work out for you. And just overall, as we always want to highlight ways of increasing our income or leveraging our knowledge in different ways, interacting with CEOs and high level people in different companies is your best route to all the different
Absolutely.
things we highlight here. We talk about speaking engagements, we talk about training, we talk about fractional work, we talk about consulting
Yes.
work. The
Mhm.
decision makers to have you come in and do any of those things all starts to tie back to leadership, essentially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's an important point that you touched upon, and I'm a firm believer in, especially just in the digital landscape that we're living in right now. Visibility is your new resume, especially if you're trying to get close to these executive leaders, support some of their boards. Visibility is your new resume. Engagement on the level of conferences, meetups, speaking engagements. This is how they really get to know you and how they really understand that, hey, I think this person can add value to me. And by the way, I remembered it now. The 5 P's are proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Oh,
If,
there it
if
is. I knew it'd come back
yeah.
to you.
Yeah, I was like, "Man, it's gonna kill me if I don't think about that, man." So it's the 5 Ps, and I'm a firm believer in that, right? So and that applies to any space, like being visible, being ready, making yourself shine when you need to make it shine, where you're talking to these leaders is so important, because at the end of the day, you have to realize your career is not a cage. The same skills that you sharpen in corporate areas are the same ones that you can launch in other spaces, in other industries, and other corporations. And that's why I say, don't be scared. Think, oh man, this is so important. Where I don't think I could even, add to it. Yeah, a board advisory role is important. A board of director role is important. But at the end of the day, the skills that you bring to the table, the mindset that you have, the drive that you have, is just as important and just needed, especially in the economy that we're living in today.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, I did want to touch on your motivation, DJ Motivates. I wanted to touch on that because I've been following a lot of what you've been posting on LinkedIn. I want to encourage others to do the same. But I just wanted you to, before we wrapped up here, I know we're close to time here. If you could just, you know, talk to us a little bit about DJ Motivates, and also how can we get in touch with you? What other media
Absolutely.
are you on that we can follow you?
Yeah, so uh DJE Motivates is extremely near and dear to me because I'm a firm believer and advocate for motivational thought leadership. Basically the premise behind it is to empower individuals and leadership at any level, in any space, in any career with motivational coaching, emotional intelligence, finding that niche for yourself from a brand development perspective. Like I said, we are in an economy, we are in a space where visibility is your new resume. Some people have the disconnect or struggle with finding their niche. How do I make a brand for myself? How do I understand what's important to me? How do I figure that out? What can I contribute to this ecosystem that's not there? Well, that's what DJ Motivates is designed. It's designed to encourage leaders, whether that be you're just getting into, let's say, corporate America, or let's say you're at a C-suite level where you've been there for a while, but you really feel like you haven't found where you need to be. Well, I'm here to empower you from an emotional intelligence perspective, with motivation to help you clear out the fog and have a clear understanding of, hey, this is what your niche is, this is what you're good at, and this is how you advocate for yourself to bring your brand development to life as far as what you want that name to be. I'll share this really quick. I was recently talking to somebody at a conference. We were talking about the very same thing, and I shared this with them. I'm gonna share this with you guys. We're all born with a name. When we're born with that name, it's up to you to put meaning to that name. You can either give it life in the way in which you want to, or you can allow certain corporations to give it life for yourself, right? So it's very important that you establish what you want that name to mean, and that's what DJE Motivates is. It helps you to put meaning to your name at the end of the day. You can find me. The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. You can either follow my page, which is Devon J Euring, or you can check me out on DJE Motivates. We have a page as well, and just hit me in a DM if you want to either share or maybe bounce something off of me that you're needing guidance with. I have open door policy. I'm here to help push that needle forward and have yourself give you a name.
All right, fantastic. Hey,